Hey, it's Mallory and Giancarlo, and we're back at Vince's at Home, but this time with a special guest.
Timbo! Timbo is here!
Hey guys.
Timbo here ran a ghost kitchen out of our Sharon location called Timbo Slice Pizza, and he's going to be our in house expert on how to make your own dough from scratch. Thanks for coming, Tim. Nice to have you back.
Well, if you're like me, we'll also be showing you how to cook our Vince's Own prepared pizzas and use our Vince's Own dough.
Eating is a necessity, Mallory, but cooking is an art.
Of course.
Tim, tell me a little bit about what we have here in front of us for ingredients.
Okay, perfect. Let's start with the flour. You could use bread flour, all-purpose flour, 00 flour. With bread flour, we're gonna get more of like a New York style pizza, which is kind of what everyone loves. Water, we just have some lukewarm water here, which you can do from your tap. Salt, we just have a fine sea salt. Any salt will work as long as it's finely grind. And we also have olive oil as well, and you can use any olive oil. And we do have some yeast as well. This is just instant dried yeast. You could use active dry yeast as well. So this dough recipe is gonna make either 2 decent sized pizzas or 3 smaller pizzas. We're gonna start with 500 grams of bread flour or all-purpose flour. We're gonna throw in 10 grams of salt, 1 gram of instant dried yeast, 325 grams of lukewarm water to it. And you're just gonna start to kind of slowly work that together until you get a full ball in the center of it, which should take about a minute or 2. I would suggest, if you want to get into any terms of baking bread, baking flour, to grab a scale. It makes it so much easier while you're doing stuff. In pizza, we cook in what's called baker percentages. Water would be a percentage of the flour, which this is 65%, and then it would work so on with the flour, yeast, and oil as well. Once we get to something like this, we're gonna let it sit for 20 minutes and just let it hydrate before we work it anymore. So now we're gonna add about 15 grams of olive oil and just kind of work that into the dough. So once we get a smooth consistency on top, we're gonna let this sit at room temperature for about an hour and a half. And then we're gonna separate it into the 2 or 3 dough balls that we need. And then we'll let it sit for 4.5 hours at room temperature until it turns into something like this.
What will we have done between the time when we actually separated into a dough ball and got to this point? What are some of the things we should be doing?
Definitely preheating your oven about 2 hours before. I like to use a baking stone or baking steel. Baking steels I find better because they transfer heat better than a stone does.
Any rule on how much flour to pop on the table before?
Just enough to kind of coat it so you're not going to let it stick to the counter. That way you might create a hole or something in the dough. So essentially what we're trying to do is kind of shape the pizza and leave some room for the crust so that you don't push the air out of it. We can even flip that and kind of work the other side as well.
Oh, I just grab the rolling pin usually and just start going.
Yeah.
So when you do that, you tend to push a lot of the air that you've let build up with inside the pizza. So that's why your crust might not pop up as much. So then we're gonna use our hands. You can use your fist, kind of. You don't want to use your fingers because you might puncture the dough. And we'll kind of just start to slowly stretch out the shape of a pizza.
He's so good at making pizza.
So good.
He's actually like...
We're then gonna take a pizza peel. We're gonna put some flour on it so it doesn't stick to the bottom.
Where would you buy one of these pizza steels?
Pizza paddle, yes.
At a lot of places, a lot of kitchen stores will sell them.
Yeah.
Sometimes we need to work quickly just so it doesn't stick to the paddle.
Yeah.
Tim, the dough that you made today, can it be used for thin crust, thick crust? How does that work?
It can be used for honestly any type of pizza. You could bake it in a pan, you could do it thin, you can do it thicker. I think this one's gonna come out a little thicker. I didn't stretch it out as much as I could. And you could do that with Vince's Own pizza dough as well.
This is more my style. All you have to do is take it out of the bag, separate it into 2 or 3, depending on the size of pizza you want, Put it in a bowl with a little bit of olive oil, cover it up, let it sit for 30 minutes at room temperature, and there you go.
Best part is you can pretend you made it.
Exactly. So you're gonna roll it out on your counter with a little bit of flour and form it into the desired shape you'd like, depending on what pan you have. You can do round, rectangle, heart shape, whatever you fancy.
I do find when you do make it by hand, it's a little easier to work with, but this is still very fantastic pizza dough. Sometimes you have to let it sit out for a little bit longer, maybe 90 minutes at room temperature, once it's been formed into its ball. If you take it right out of the bag, if you don't let it sit for a little bit, it's going to be very elastic, and the gluten's going to keep pulling it, so you just kind of need to let that gluten relax. When you buy pizza from Vince's, it's got a very strong gluten structure,
Yes.
and once you form it into its ball, it's going to be super tight, and it just needs to sit for about 90 minutes before
That makes
everything
sense.
relaxes again.
Makes sense. Something I'm noticing about the way that you do your pizza versus me is you're very patient.
You have to be.
You're willing to go
yeah,
back and
you
forth
have,
with
you
it.
have to be.
I would have been like, it's done. Put the sauce on. Let's go.
I mean, you definitely could. I just want to get it a little
You want it
more
to
thin.
hold that shape.
Exactly.
So Tim's already made us a few fantastic pizzas. And now we have something that's even easier. Vince's own prepared pizzas.
Oh, I thought cooking was an art, Giancarlo.
It is, but I'm no artiste. Vince's own prepared deli pizzas are made fresh in store. We use a par-baked crust, which means it's been baked off only a little bit, just to get it partially cooked and together. And then it's topped with our Vince's own sauce and cheese. If you go with a straight cheese pizza, then you can top it at home with whatever you like. Or if you're like me and just like a simple cheese pizza, just throw it right in the oven.
Well, for any artist out there or anyone who's up for a challenge, by all means, go ahead and try making your own dough at home like Tim did. But for myself, I'll stick to the easy ways.
Which one? The Vince's own dough or the Vince's own prepared?
Oh, no. Tim makes them for me at home because I'm marrying him.